Welcome to episode 2 of the Haunted Heist Devlog. Today we will be talking about our character overhaul, where we'll discuss the work of our talented contractor, Micah Holland of Monitor Head Studios at length. This episode includes lots of work-in-progress video B-roll throughout, so be sure to check out some never-before-shared behind-the-scenes nuggets. Enjoy and leave a comment if you'd like. Welcome everyone, this is episode 2 of the Devlog. I am not a host, but I am one of two people participating. My name's Dominic. I am the designer of working with Autotroph Games, or as a founding member of Autotroph Games, on the game Haunted Heist, our PvP horror comedy round-based FPS. And who am I with today?
Jacob, I am the programmer of our team. I just tried to point to you on my screen. I don't know if that's where you are, but
I'm
design
direction.
Design programming. Yeah, I know. I was gonna say though, it does feel like you're the host because you're the one recording, I suppose. But
I'm just.
I do feel like you're guests.
I'm moving us along. I would say is what I'm doing. Yeah. What do we want to talk about today in the world of Haunted Heist?
Well, I feel like I want to use this as a platform to talk about kind of what we've done in the last week or so, or like weekly updates around, what we did and what we're planning on doing, as well as maybe just like picking, one or two things to like talk a little extra about if we get kind of like pulled off onto a tangent. I feel like this week, what that would be is talking more about the character overhaul. We're kind of at a point where we're getting closer and closer to fully replacing the old character models with the new character models that we've built with our animator Micah, and that's getting really exciting. We're finally, all these things are coming together. I think for context too, we've been working with him since literally like January 1st, 2026. So it's been 3.5 months now, I guess, of us working on this. Obviously that goes from the beginning. It's like, what do we want these characters to look like? And then iterating on the models and then actually getting them in the game and then working on animations. So there's a lot that goes into that. We knew that it would take a while. I think even our estimate was like, we were thinking that maybe we would be getting the characters in around now. Which I thought at the time was like conservative, but even a conservative estimate is always actually the accurate one with stuff like this. But yeah, I mean, like we're at a point where I mostly removed the old character models from the game, like yesterday, I think. Was that yesterday or was that last week? Well, maybe last Friday. And yeah, that's really exciting because we're going to be able to do, some play testing soon with new character models, which is, yeah, really awesome.
Nice. And that's, yeah, it feels like for me at least that it's been a long time coming, at least just like seeing the progress. And I feel like there's always a situation with this type of stuff that we're making where it kind of looks like it's almost ready for a very long time, even though there's so much going on behind the scenes that needs to sort of be executed. So we've been kind of running around, at least as the heister characters, for a while, and that's felt, good enough. But I think like, we can't start the sort of playtesting process without the Trickster side of it either, or I guess like as a sort of, building them sort of rounds out the experience. Like you can't have one without the other, I would say. So it's been really exciting watching this stuff get built over time, and we've been teasing it for a while. Also, like I think these models have been sort of. We've been trickling them out in various forms in the last few months. And recently I just had a friend reach out to me and was like, can you stop teasing this and just like, let us play as these characters? So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for it. People seem excited for it. It's not going to be something we include into the demo. As charitable as I'd like to be, I do think that would be maybe a bit too much too soon in terms of our rollout. Like we said last week, I think the demo is going to stay as it is. But we will be starting the process of more internal playtesting with these characters, which is really exciting and something that I can't wait to do, to just see what we're what we're working with, and if this improves the experience a bit. I think what I'm most interested in is the scariness of the Trickster. Like, does this reimagining into a more sort of frightening iteration of this character make the game scarier? And there's this whole process, right, of like building its shape and the way that it moves. And I think we want to kind of strike that balance between it being sort of both menacing and a bit chaotic and a little awkward and odd at the same time to create this, the horror comedy thing is something that we want to get right tonally. So I think that's something that, Mike is doing a really good job with, and I can't wait to see how it sort of plays out and if people are going to be spooked a bit more. Because, we get comments every now and then. I don't want to only bring up the critical comments, but, people saying, like, this isn't scary. Like, you calling this a horror game is a joke. So, I'd like to sort of do what we can to combat that. I've had some moments of fright, of true fright, but I don't know, if my particular experience is enough to weigh.
Yeah, I do think that the new character models, like for the Trickster, are going to give a bit more of a feeling of like, you don't want that guy, behind you chasing you around. Mm-hmm. I think that there's fright in that. I mean, not just jump scares, because like there's a bit of psychological horror to it as well when you know that somebody's lurking in the shadows, and there is the jump scare aspect of it as well, where like somebody might just appear and be trying to stab you, but layering that like actual kind of more visual element on top of it is going to be really cool. There's like something I feel like very visceral about, like I'm picturing looking down a hallway and seeing like a much more humanoid, like creepy figure walking across the hall real quick, rather than just seeing like a pill body move across your screen. There's a feeling of seeing them come towards you when they feel more kind of, I don't know, like they have more of an actual physical presence, and like they're more animated. It kind of like gives you more of a feeling of what they might do to you if they reach you, I suppose. Yeah,
it's the psychology of it for sure. I think you're like really hitting the nail on the head. I think watching like a half-naked pill run away sort of inspires you to chase after that pill.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
And I think that I think a bit of this is going to be the actual mechanics that we pair this with, of like if there's more that can happen, more that's like chaotic and outside of your like comprehension, because we go past that limit of like everything that the Trickster can do is sort of right there in front of you, and we provide a bit more of the what if, the potential chaos. Then the Trickster becomes more of this like this legendary figure, like someone that you don't know the sort of like limits to their strength. And that's exciting to me. And I think that like having that be, having the legend sort of exist both in the mechanics and a revamp in the visual design creates a situation where I think people will, not be as sort of incentivized to attack, and more so be like, who knows what this guy can do to me? I need to get out of here. We want to obscure the mechanics as much as possible, which it's a little bit of a challenge because we also provide the full extent of the mechanics to the Trickster, right? So like, how do we, meaning that someone will play the Trickster and then like get it, and there is a little bit of like the sort of facade wearing off. I think those first couple games before you play, if that's how things work, like there's a real magic to that. And we need to figure out how we preserve that. And I think a little bit of it is like volume of abilities and sort of like allowing people to have a bit of, I guess putting a bit of wonderment in people's minds. I think I mentioned this to you, Jacob, and I don't know the name of the game, but I want to just allude to it, and I'll probably put it up in the podcast itself. But yeah, I mentioned this to you. There's this game in which you're sort of like attending some like electrical grid or something like that. Like your job is to basically do these menial tasks around this space where you're like moving from location to location. It's a very remote area. And it's this itch.io game that's been in alpha for years. And the way that the developer keeps things interesting is that it's a horror game. And so there's any sort of amount of random events that can happen that are spooky. And they also hold off from playing these or like having these events play out for a really long time into your play session, or like your like accrued hours. So, you play the game for a bunch, you're doing menial tasks, you like get in that rote repetition, and then after a certain point, stuff starts happening. And you're like, holy shit. Like, it just starts to, like, hit you. I think it's like someone said, like, a red car just, like, in a completely uninhabited area just drove through the space. And so you, like, notice and you're like, whoa. Like, this is something that, context matters. It's important, right? And this isn't completely related to our game, but I'm thinking about it as, like, it creates a situation in which there's an endless amount of things that could possibly happen. And because also with updates, this developer has been like rolling things in and out of, like, I think the description, or at least the way that I heard in the podcast I was listening to, was like 3 things removed, 5 things added, and it's just like you don't know what. And maybe we do that with updates. Maybe we do it by just having abilities on abilities on abilities, especially as it relates to the sub abilities that can come as a sort of product of the fright system. So a bit of a tangent there, but I am really interested in seeing the ways in which this character, or at least the Trickster, provides that mental sort of fodder for trying to understand how we want to make him creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I'm glad you brought that back up, because I remember you bringing that up before, and it is very interesting. I think that it's cool that we can have kind of our base set of abilities and have kind of a ground rules that both heisters and tricksters will understand, as long as the heisters have like played as trickster before, right? They'll understand this is a toolkit that the trickster has. So when I encounter a trickster in the halls of the mansion, I can know, generally what they're capable of. But I think even within that, it's kind of interesting that, there's 2, usually 3 abilities within each category. So when you see a trickster, unless they have a certain item out, like for instance the bow, you still don't know what they're gonna try to do to you. Like in general, at least right now, and this may change, but a lot of I guess only the bow and the knife really have any sort of big visual cue to the player that the trickster has a certain ability equipped. So like, I don't know if you have invisibility, if you have siphon or something like that, right? And I think that's pretty interesting, because it means that, like, I know that you could do these things, but I don't know which thing you're planning on doing to me, so I might not, like, be able to call that out to somebody, or so I think within that space we actually have a little bit of that preservation of, like, oh, what's going to happen. But then it's cool that even in that smaller component with the fright system, and you were saying the sort of roulette abilities, or those things you can earn through the fright system, cycling those in and out would be really interesting. I mean, I don't think that we're really trying to, like, I don't think from the beginning we wanted Haunted Heist to be this, like, big live service game or anything, but I think that it's really interesting as a developer to have the power to do something like that. That, like, the removed 3 things, added 5 things is so cool. It's like, that's really interesting, a way to keep people engaged. It's like, you see that and you're like, what are these new things that I can do in the game? So it sort of levels the playing field a little bit between new players and old players, keeps people interested, and preserves that level of psychological horror as well. So I think it's nice to have that foundation of, like, I can understand what's happening to me in general, because I understand the body of trickster abilities, but then having these other ones that have a bit of kind of, they're sort of like ephemeral. Somebody might use this and then you might never see it again. I mean, this is obviously in flux too. We don't know how long we'll keep certain abilities in that sort of roulette of abilities you can earn through the fright system, but I think it's a super cool thing to explore. And again, another thing that feels super unique within the space.
What a lovely word to use, ephemeral. I was just stuck on that after a while after you said it. That's great.
You know what's funny is I actually know what that word means because in college my roommate, I'll name him Dan, if you're watching this, Dan, he was in like this engineering class where they had to have like a team of people that, you know, for some group project, and they had to come up with a team name. And he came up with the name Ephemeral Solutions, and he was so proud of himself because it was like, it's like, that's not a good name.
Yeah, it'd be a terrible name for a company.
It sounds super cool. Just like, ephemeral, like what does that mean?
I like it though
It's
as part of like a term-based project group, right? Like it's work that doesn't matter. It's like it matters, but it's gonna go away after the term ends. So
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's really smart.
It is great.
Huh. Okay, well, I'm excited about this stuff. I think that in terms of your live service, like sort of illusion, ideally we want to be in a world where we're building this game after it releases. There's a world in which it mega flops and we don't feel incentivized to do so. But you know, this is the kind of stuff we have in mind. If it, you know, pops off in a way that we sort of feel that incentive to continue.
It would be an absolute pleasure to be in a place where it feels like it makes a lot of sense for us to be doing this.
A privilege.
It feels fresh and exciting, and that people are you know, looking forward to it, and it's like actually helping gameplay. Like that's really cool because at that point the game is already made. You know, it's like working on fun new little stuff to put in the game.
Fun part always.
That's great. Yeah, exactly.
From then on, for sure.
But yeah, I definitely do think, like you said, we're I think you and I are pretty aligned that we're likely not going to be putting the new characters in the demo ever. I mean, that could possibly change, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Unless we did some sort of like post-release like demo update in which we really scope the demo differently than what it is today, where the demo today is basically just the game.
Yeah.
But it does make me excited for the fact that, you know, we're going to end up running more kind of internal playtests with, you know, friends and family, and then eventually want to include, you know, people from our Discord and stuff like that into sort of private playtesting again, which I feel like was a really rewarding thing for us. You know, we ran a private playtest through our Discord back in January before doing Next Fest in February.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And there are still people from that who have stuck around and are like, you know, very relevant
involved
in our Discord
in the community.
server, you know, very involved. So it would be really exciting to me to, you know, be in a place, maybe, I don't know when it'll be, but maybe a month or something like that, maybe a little bit longer, where we're feeling really solid with some of these gameplay mechanics and new characters and stuff, and inviting the community back in for another round of feedback before we really like push towards that final phase of polish.
Yeah, and I could see us doing, you know, a free weekend or something like that, build some hype up after we've made a few changes, let people know like a lot is changing and like this game doesn't have the problems that it did, because we're, you know, thinking about them and listening to all of it. Cat's going crazy behind me. One thing, you know, because we're already sort of in the second half of the time that we blocked for this. I'm really interested in just like talking about implementation and also inspiration for some of the character stuff and like why we're making them in the way that we are. One of the big, I guess I can start from the inspiration side, just like as a design thing, as like what's the inception, what's the origin of like why we built in the way that we built, and then would love to pass it off to you in terms of like technical implementation. And that's both with the faces and cosmetics as well as the animation trees, I think, are probably the big things from your side. And, you know, would have been great to have Mike on. Maybe we can in the future to talk about this stuff, because I'm sure he has a lot to say about, you know, his side of it and what he's like literally building, because we're just kind of working around his work. So from an inspiration side of this, I think, you know, we grew up in kind of like, I would consider it golden age FPS, but that might be biased because, you know, we are the age that we are. But I'm thinking of games like Call of Duty, like Halo, like some of the sort of early, and I guess big Valve games like Left 4 Dead and TF2, for example, Counter-Strike. And I think this really is painting our inspiration. I think also BioShock is something that I wanted to mention too. And you go a few years later, there's also Dishonored. And I'm saying all of these games sort of, it's kind of the mood board of like, and this is a shared thing. I don't think that this is necessarily like what I think and what I'm championing myself. I think, Jacob, you're also sort of really interested in like having these influences that you also experience make their way into this project. But there is a level of expressiveness with first person hands during this era that I really wanted to recapture, and it's something that in the sort of pre-Micah animation work that I did, that is in all the footage that you have seen up to this point, that's all sort of inspired by that era of games, in which there is a lot of sort of maximalist movement happening with the hands. There's a lot of, outstretching of the fingers and twirling, and what I like to call the cool guy flip, which is just you flip something for no sort of practical reason. You do it because it looks sick. And so like every time, and I think this like really helped, like truly helped with some of the Trickster footage in terms of that like hook being cool and engaging on a social media platform, is like the second that you equip the knife in the original characters, as the Trickster, that knife does a little, the Trickster does a little toss, the knife flips, and then it is caught. And that, as a non-animator, that was quite the challenge to pull off in terms of like keyframing and motion curving, but really happy I was able to figure it out, and provided just the amount of foundation for Micah to take that and run with it, which is great. So working from there, I guess in my collaboration, or like early collaboration with Micah, there was a bit of like, this is the foundation. So you can see, with some of the hand movements that I was responsible for, a lot of stuff is canned. Like the gun is something that we've already, we took from an existing Sketchpad model. All those animations already existed. A lot of the other items are just like placed in front of the character right now, just because it was the fastest way to do it. And like, we just weren't putting hands on items, which we're now doing, which is great. I was sort of responsible for the Trickster hand motions. So that's where there's that basis, that origin of motion. So I would say there's that as sort of the blueprint, and then there is the sort of inspiration in some of the games that I mentioned. I think TF2 is probably the biggest one, and the Spy in particular. Just the way that like he sort of operates that butterfly knife is something that I'm like really interested in as something that we can carry into our game. And that sort of creates the cauldron of inspiration for what we're going forward with. And I think right now Mike is in a stage where he's doing sort of a lateral pass of this stuff and just trying to like make sure that we have an animation for holding everything, and for all of the movements from like a third person and first person perspective for both the Heister and the Trickster. But my hope is over time we'll be able to provide a bit more energy, personality into those movements. And then in addition to that, and this will probably be where I segue to you to use the next 5 minutes of your time, is to have this stuff as well as the cosmetics in terms of faces, hats, accessories, for I guess you would say, for the Trickster. I guess you had a better word for it, but I've been sort of thinking about it in my head. Outfits? As accessories.
Was it?
Say it again.
Was it outfits or the body horror thing?
Oh, yeah, body horror. Yeah,
that was something that Micah said. I totally
okay. No, that's. No, I'm glad you're attributing it to him, because I love that as just like a an element to this where it's like there's personality to be gained in these like pieces outside of the animation itself. It's like within the design, and that expressiveness is something that we're really interested in. And then there's the emotes. So I think we've got a couple in there right now. There's a backflip and there's a twerk. But I don't know, you were saying Micah moves at lightning speed building this stuff out. So I'm excited to just like see the type of stuff that we can put in. I want to put in just stupid stuff. Just like I want you to be able to dab for sure. And I also want, at some point for us to do a like pound it, like a knuckle situation of like you can hold out your fist bump and then have someone meet it, and for that to have some sort of like particle effect when it happens. That's really exciting to me. So
I do think stuff like that would be really fun. It's definitely doable. A bit of a step above the like single person emote, but I think like shared emotes could definitely be a thing. I was thinking the old autotroph 3-way high five.
Oh, that's great. A good one. Yeah. I think the UX behind that is like a head scratcher for me, but I think we could figure it out. Of like, you just have to kind of stand in place, and then once everyone sort of fills out the circle, maybe it's more than a 3-way high five. Maybe you can do up to a 10-way high five. This is where all these good ideas start to formulate in conversations like this. So,
yeah, I guess we're pretty low on time for this, but I guess I would say like we can dive more into this later when maybe we eventually have Micah on a call, and he and I could even like deep dive into our actual technical implementation for some of this stuff. But I think circling way back to the beginning, you were talking about how we've kind of did heister stuff first for the new characters, and recently we've been working on the Trickster, and we wanted to do that kind of full set of things before we went and play tested. And part of that is that doing the heister didn't mean that our technical implementation was done. Like there were sort of there are things that the Trickster needed from, I guess, like a technical perspective that the heister didn't need. The most obvious example is when the Trickster is using the bow. The way that we actually have the bow like point towards basically the center of your screen. If you're looking at like say you're looking at the third person version of the Trickster too, since first person is basically your arms are just like on the screen and it's like this. It kind of works different. But in third person, you're looking at this body. The bow is supposed to be like tracking so that it's pointing exactly where the reticle is. But that can actually be a challenge from an animation perspective because of the way that the rig works, where like the bow, when he does this, he is actually like turning his chest, so that way is forward, but now his chest and his spine is basically twisted that way. And that basically, in order to make sure that the bow can point in the correct direction, you kind of need to use this thing called inverse kinematics, or IK, to basically get the animation or the skeleton to compute like the arrangement that the bones need to be in, such that we can maintain looking this direction, looking as in, I guess, the arms are looking this direction, while still respecting the intended spine rotation. So keep the spine this way, but figure out how to get the arms to go over here. And that was something that the heister doesn't need, because everything's just full on, kind of just like straight. So it was really important that we did that. It would be really interesting for me to do a deep dive into that whole system at some point, and see, I still can't tell if what we built is really smart, or if it's just like very trivial and basic, or if it's just actually actively stupid. But it seems to be working great for us. I think it's very clean, very extensible. And I think from like a development perspective, that's all you really need, right? Is a system that you can understand, that is like performant enough for your needs, and that you can extend easily. And I feel like that's what we have right now. So
yeah, and I would say, like, as an outsider, I spent some time in Engine super quick just checking it out, and it's very sort of palatable to me. Like I was able to hop in and feel as though I understood everything that was happening. So maybe this is just gonna be two stooges. Like, if we have anyone technical take a look at this, if you do a deep dive, they're gonna be like, this is dumb. Both of you guys said that, like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But I honestly, it's like, to a certain extent, it's whatever works for us. Like, you built what works for you, and it's not like we're gonna have a team of people, like, more than like one or two extra people working on this.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that part of it's really cool. The IK. Another thing I wanted to call out is like the movement of the head. When you're like looking up, the head looks up. When you're looking down, head looks down, side to side, that kind of stuff. I think, is there some IK involved in that as well? Do you know?
Yeah. It's the same sort of idea where there's basically this like invisible point in space, like above your
right.
head.
It creates this like tension.
And when the camera rotates, that point rotates, and it tells the spine, "Hey, try to point towards that," and so it'll compute.
Okay.
Like,
but it's working with its own limits.
Mm-hmm.
which is why it doesn't like flop over.
Yeah,
I guess
you can. It's fully like configurable. This is something that I don't have as much knowledge of. I just kind of saw Micah fiddle with it a little bit, but you can change, all sorts of constraints to make sure that he doesn't sort of fold in half when you look at the floor and stuff.
Wow. Okay, well, that's cool. That was a crazy quick crash course, but we are at the time that we time box for ourselves, so I want to be cognizant of that. If people are more interested in hearing more, we can continue the conversation as it relates to this. I think having Mike on would be really smart. So, I think that's it for us. But thanks for tuning in to episode 2, and we will be back. Take care.
Cool. See you.
Peace out. Bye-bye.